Welcome to MRE Uncut, where we'll give you real and practical insights into the real estate scene in Melbourne. We'll discuss what's happening in the industry, all backed by MRE's history of over 30 years in the game. With that said, let's jump into this week's episode of MRE Uncut.
Hi, welcome back to another MRE Uncut. My name's Stephen Fitzsimon and I'm here with Peter Hooymans.
G'day, Steve-o.
Hello, Peter.
How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good.
Excellent. Good to see you.
Today we're going to talk about landlord lemmings or lemming landlords, or
Don't be
what
a
are we
lem-
talking about
don't
again?
Don't be a lemming.
Don't be a lemming.
If you're a landlord or you're a property owner and it's rented currently, don't be a lemming.
My kids have got the lemming game on the computer.
Lemming is a little thing. It's a little furry creature that lives in the Arctic, looks like a guinea pig that jumps off a cliff. The theory is that it jumps off a cliff when they overpopulate.
Right.
It's actually an urban myth. The story behind the urban myth is a bit long, so I won't tell it now, but you get the idea.
So they don't jump off cliffs.
Don't jump off the cliff.
But they jump off the cliffs because what? The guy in front jumps off the cliff. So this is like when I tell my kids off and say...
So they have a herd mentality. So when the first one jumps off, they all follow.
Right, okay. Like the zebras crossing the river when they get eaten by the crocodiles.
It's probably similar but different.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's because they got no fear or brain, something.
I don't think the lemmings are too bright if they're jumping off a cliff.
Guinea pigs. The point is, in context of what we're doing, a lot of landlords, lots of landlords sort of ringing us about land tax and,
panicking,
legislation and all the things we've covered in the
They've
last
had a bad
few
trot.
months, right? It's pretty hard. And I was thinking about it just in the scheme of, looking at a few properties in the area. When things are open for inspection, I always have a little peek. Can't help myself.
No.
And then I jump online onto the resources that we have as agents and look at the property history. And the property history always consistently floors me. Anything that's been built for more than 20 years is mind blowing.
Yeah.
What really got me thinking about why we should talk about this was a little house that came up recently. It was number 6 Barton Street. It was in Hawthorne.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nice block of land backing onto a park.
Yeah.
I think about 250 square metres. The house was a knockdown.
Okay.
And it was rented, clearly not compliant. And it sold for, put a circle around 2 mil. I don't know if it was just about 2 mil.
Yeah.
It was a sort of sold quick, like a week.
For a knockdown.
But when I looked at the history, what do you reckon that property sold for in 1977?
77, 85 grand.
20 grand.
20 grand.
$20,000.
And it's gone to 2 million.
2 million.
And they probably haven't put a lot of money into it if it's a knockdown.
Well, I just put no money. It was original, right? So original bar, sink, zero money.
Right, 500 mil splashbacks. Yeah.
Great location.
Bench tops. Yep.
So in other words, property's a long game. Always has been a long game. When I started in 88, my first boss was saying to me, you got to keep property, 20 years. And I actually wish I'd probably listened to that advice a bit bit closer and kept things, but we've all got those stories.
Yeah.
The point is that our landlords really should be taking at least a 10-year view, preferably a 20-year view.
Yeah.
And what are we in now? 224?
Yeah.
Based on current projections, and this is by Australian Bureau of Statistics, I'm going to ask you this is a trick question. What do you think the median value of a house will be in 2040?
2040.
So it's not that far away, right? 16 years?
16 years.
I'll be feeling pretty old by then.
So
you'll be, how old will you be in 16 years?
75.
No, you won't. You'll be 60 or something.
Something like that. 60-something.
Right.
So
Emily will be 40.
When I grew up, they always said,
old.
Patty will be 28. It's disgusting. He's just got a beard. So
2040, median value will be.
Okay.
Yes,
I reckon it's around about $1 million now.
Yeah.
Therefore, it needs to, 2.5.
6.
Whoa.
6 million.
6 million.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's actually 5.9.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know that, and that's 16 years away.
How'd you get a mortgage?
Well, I'm just saying and the other thing. So there's with this topic, the one little sort of disclaimer or caveat, if you like, is your data source.
Yeah.
Because when you research it, there's lots of data sources. The one I kind of like is the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which has only been around about 50 years.
But where'd you pluck that from?
Where?
There's 6 million.
ABS.
So from the ABS. So they're predicting that
there's a report on there you can download, which is the last 25 years and the next 25 years.
Oh,
and it was that report was written in 2020. Now, think about this. In 2020, so since I'm going to use a blue chip suburb because it just happened to have been reading about it recently. Toorak has experienced 45% growth in 5 years.
45. What's that mean? Or
45% growth just across the sales, 10 million plus sales. So that's 9% per annum.
Wow,
it's not that extraordinary.
No,
because here's the facts, right?
But if it's your principal place,
in the last 70 years in Australia, and this is across all capital cities barring Darwin. The average is, you can put a circle, the number is 10.4, but just put a circle around 10.
Yeah.
And the average in Melbourne is 8.1%. Okay.
Every year.
8.1% capital growth every year. Now, we both know in COVID, how much growth did we get? For 2 years, not much.
Yeah. Well, it sort of went up and then dried up.
It
went down.
Some of it went down a bit.
Yeah, it went down and then came back up.
I remember thinking about prices now that I looked at thinking, oh my God, that was so cheap.
Yeah.
But at the time, it didn't feel cheap because it was so much uncertainty. But the one thing that I think is certain is that if you look at an apartment, a unit, townhouse, home on land, is it going to be more expensive or less expensive in 2029?
No, much more expensive.
Is it going to be more expensive or less in 2033?
Yeah, more again.
Are we going to have fluctuations and
of course,
bits and bobs go, and probably have a few share market crash? Who knows?
Yeah,
might have an interest rate bubble. I don't know. Could we have any economic scenario you like? Even a war.
Yep.
Right. We've already got one going on, but let's just say, throw the worst geopolitical scenario you could at it. I'm going to say property price is still going to be more in 5 years because we know building costs are really going through the roof. Are they abating? No. So replacement cost is more.
Yeah.
Yep. So
population's low.
So if you're a landlord and this is for literally any type of property.
Yeah.
Especially I really like suburban stuff. Because it's at that lower rung and it, say for example, one of the top 3, or I think it was top 5 actually, growth suburbs in the last decade is Lilydale.
Right, okay.
Where I grew up.
Yeah, your backyard.
Lilydale.
Yep.
40 k's out of Melbourne because it's affordable, see.
Right. So people still want the house and land and they can't afford it closer.
Something like that, yeah. But in town, I just think if you look now, we've got really super tight supply. You look at our portfolio of properties that we manage for around 4,000 landlords. There's quite a few that are selling. If you look back, playing devil's advocate here, we're talking about prices going nuts. They haven't really gone nuts in the last 10 years. But what's the fundamental change in terms of that for the apartment market? I think apartments are about to get started.
Yeah, that's my take.
Well, I think if they're not getting started, they're moving. And we just heard from Michael earlier that he's selling an apartment every day.
Yeah.
So our resales team's selling one a day basically. And 2 years ago we weren't selling one a day. The market wasn't there.
Yeah.
So the owner occupiers are finally realising that the only place to park your money. I mean, if you've got money in the bank at the moment, let's say you had $100,000 in the bank and you're going to buy a property.
Yeah.
Or you were thinking of buying a property. If you've got $100,000 in the bank, what's happening to that money?
You're getting 3.7, which is below inflation.
3.7 interest, less tax. Yeah. So you're getting 1.5% with inflation running at 4.5%.
Yeah.
The value of your $100,000 is going backwards by $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
So if it's $1 million, it's $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
Cash is just brutal.
Yeah.
Cash is awful.
Yeah.
So it's losing its value.
Fast. And then we've got huge population growth planned.
What have we got? 500,000 or something?
Yeah.
What's Melbourne?
In population?
Yeah.
I think we're sitting at around 5 million at the moment. Something like that.
No, sorry. What's our trajectory of immigration?
Oh, no. I think Australia is doing 500,000 a year. So it's ridiculous. It's record.
So it's a lot. So we're seeing that in rents, right?
Yeah.
So as rents are starting to really catch up now,
they're taking off.
Just quickly while we're on it, our rents were $525 a week average across our portfolio before COVID. They dropped to about $400 a week during COVID because it was difficult to get it done.
Yep.
We're now back post-COVID to $605 a week
something
or something like that.
Yep.
So it's extraordinary ascent of rental prices.
Yep.
And we're not seeing any let up.
No.
Because $600 at the end of the day is really not that much money to the average punter who really, really needs a home.
Correct.
Especially if there's two.
And that's lagging behind the properties that we're renting them for are averaging around the low sevens, low to mid sevens. So the whole portfolio is 12 months behind it.
There's another curve I looked at. It was really interesting, which was the rate of property growth. So I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I said, you can't save money fast enough to keep up with the property market. So if you get into the property market now, last week, next month, whatever, you need to get in when you can.
Yeah, just do it.
Owner occupier or landlord, just do it. Get amongst it because property prices are outpacing wage growth.
Yeah,
and have done for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's only going to get harder. You know, if you're a landlord, how's your price going to go on your rental property? It's going to go up.
Yeah.
The other thing I looked at, right? So, you know, go back 30 years, property prices always rise when we're in inflationary periods.
Yes.
You know, in 1989, I remember selling a house for $110,000. And I remember selling the same house in 91 for $80,000. That's the only time I can remember in my career where prices actually went back a substantial amount.
Yeah.
And I still remember the name. I won't say her surname, but her first name was Judy. I remember her coming in and her interest rate was 17% and her wage was about $2,000 a month as a teacher.
Yeah.
And her interest was 17% on 100,000.
Yeah. So 17 grand. She can't afford it.
100% of her income.
Yeah.
So we sold, but I looked at that house about 10 years later in 98 or 9 and it was 250. And then I followed it for a little while there into the sort of 2010. I think the last time it sold was 650.
Right.
And now it's probably worth 1.3 because it was on a nice big block with a palm tree in the front of all things.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, you know, hang on.
Yeah.
Is the question.
If you can.
Well,
do everything you can to hang on.
How can you not?
Because you're not. If you let it go, you're going to go further backwards.
Like
in terms of savings.
What's the pain point? Okay, you got a bit of interest, but then the rent's helping you pay that. That's the whole idea of it.
Yeah.
I think as well, landlords have forgotten what negative gearing is.
Yeah.
So buying property in times of high interest rates used to be a fantastic way to save some tax.
Yeah.
So whatever happened to that?
Yeah, it's seen in a different light now. But is that cost of living pressure? Just like at the end of the month when they've paid all the bills, they don't have enough money to you know.
There's no doubt cost of living is pretty brutal at the moment. I mean, you see petrol, it's just nuts.
Yeah, everything costs a fortune.
Coming back to property though, so we've got inflation. Well, inflation, the real stat. Does anyone know the real stat? Is it 4.3?
Look, I looked at it recently and it was 6.1 on a 12-month, but I think it's coming down. And I think that the ones that they're quoting when
4.3 might have been the quarterly.
The quarterly,
yeah. But so most economists and bankers know that there's always a lag.
Yeah.
In inflation. And you know, again, I'm not a banker, so I'm not saying I'm an expert, but if the official number's 4, it's generally higher.
Yeah.
And it feels higher. Like 4%, if you think 4% on $1,000 is, you know, is $40. It feels like
you think about the basics. The basic cost of everything costs a lot more than 4%.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's more than $4 per 100.
Yes.
Definitely. I mean, you fill your car up, it's $2.50.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So inflation is still with us, which means rates are higher for longer.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found fascinating really was that in Melbourne, and I just focused on Melbourne because that's where we are, New South Wales is certainly super strong as well, as is WA. The last 30 years, there's like the vast majority of inner Melbourne suburbs, I'm going to say within 15 Ks radius. So things like Maribyrnong and Footscray, Yarraville. I mean, you remember like 20 years ago, Yarraville said, and you wouldn't go there.
No.
Now it's the up and comer. Box Hill. I mean, Box Hill's.
Yeah, Box Hill, sir.
So that
game changer.
10 and 11%.
Moorabbin. You know, like places like that.
10s and 11s for those suburbs over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, so if you do your maths on 10 or 11% compound growth.
Yeah, it's significant.
If it's your principal place of residence, which is not really what we're talking about here because we're talking about landlords hanging on.
Yeah.
But if it was your principal place of residence, well, then you've made a fortune tax-free. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
which is a pretty common thing, right, for baby boomers.
Yeah.
Um,
But now that land tax is becoming a pain in the backside for the investors, which is going to push them out of the house and land in Maribyrnong and into apartments.
So then apartment prices will go
Will
higher.
go,
But so key theme simply was, don't jump off the cliff if you're a landlord.
Yeah.
Don't be a lemming.
The time
Even though lemmings don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't be one of them.
So, yeah, don't be one of them. So
Don't be a lemming.
do what you can to hang on.
Do what you can. Yeah, find the extra, whatever it is per month,
Yeah.
to just keep that property. Think about this, we've got some clients in our portfolio who have got extraordinary portfolios, right?
Yeah.
And are they long-term thinkers or short-term thinkers?
Well, most of them are long-term thinkers.
Correct. They're not even medium-term thinkers.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd go as far as to say, if you think about the ones, and the ones I'm thinking about, they're generational thinkers.
Yeah.
So they've not thought about like my life. It's like their life and their grandparents' life.
Yeah.
I was talking to a client the other day who's got a property in Kew.
Yeah.
It was like this acre, but I was like, oh, wow, I think what's that worth? I don't know, some extraordinary number, $20 million or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but Dad bought it in 1964.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So it's only
112,000.
Well, it's only taken 60 years.
Yeah.
But, so if you think the really, really smart property investors think generationally.
Yeah.
And so I encourage the investors today to think for your generation at least, or your life, or 20 years, and don't worry about selling it.
So the only thing that I'd add to that to sort of finish off, because I think the logic, the stats, then the logic makes sense.
Yep.
But if you're sitting there and you're hurting now,
yes,
then you've got to assess your rental, because there's probably upside on your rental.
Oh, so you just throw a pitch in here for your services.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Can't help myself.
Well, my services too. But
yeah. But yes,
I've heard this
assess
before.
your rental.
Yeah, I mean, I think rents have outpaced. Again, this is probably another podcast, or maybe we've already done it. Rents have outpaced agents' abilities to service the rise.
Yes.
So there's so much more rent out there left in the tin.
Correct.
And this is not an anti-tenant statement, but it's just that agents don't have enough people to service
correctly.
Yeah.
So when that agent
come to
calls,
MRE and get the rent,
well, that's
right?
Yes, that's a blunt plug. but when the rent review is due, spend an extra few minutes on it, because there's gold there.
Or call Steve on 0431
759 699.
That's the one. Say it again.
0431 759 699.
Thank you.
That's us.
Yeah. So, all right, that's good.
Yeah, hang in there.
Capital growth.
Don't jump off the cliff.
That's the game. That's what you bought for. You bought for capital growth.
Coming.
You knew there were going to be some costs. Don't be a little scaredy cat and suck it up.
Thanks for coming in, Pete.
See you, mate.